We are going to be doing a legislative overview and panel discussion with some of our bike champions and rock stars on Beacon Hill, Representative Fernandes and Representative Natalie Blais. We're going to be hearing about our super cool Worcester E-Bike program, some adult programming, and then we're going to have the moment you all will have been waiting for, our MassBike Advocate of the Year. And then the part where we're so sad to not be in person, but we're so happy to see everyone, is the networking from 2 to 2:30. We're going to do this via breakout rooms, which will all be staffed by a MassBike board member or staff, and you'll be able to chat with everyone. And of course, we could not do what we do, whether it's volunteers or staff, without your generous support. And we walk the walk or we bike the bike. Board members are going to match your contributions tonight up to $8,500. So MassBike is looking for another 200 members during the month of December to meet our goals. If you've given to MassBike in the past, please renew your support with a gift of any size. We appreciate your generosity. For new members, we have a special offer. We are going to be matching all of your donations up to $8,500, and anyone giving $100 can select a complimentary pair of MassBike socks. And I have to say, I have a pair and they are pretty darn stylish. So with that, I would love to introduce you to the MassBike staff. Thanks again to all of them for their fantastic work. And then, of course, our fabulous board that is represents all corners of the Commonwealth. And it's a pleasure of mine to serve with these really fantastic bike folks. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Galen Mook, the Executive Director of MassBike.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. So this year was a really impactful year for biking across the Commonwealth. We had a very busy year with accomplishments that are not ours, but collectively together. We have a strong coalition with leadership from the administration and in the legislature, with coalition partners, and we have way more than we can fit on a single slide. So we had to be very selective in order to fit everything into 1 hour. So just a few highlights. In 2022, we are super proud that we were able to really hunker down and work on e-bikes. Some of the work that we've been working on for several years has been to define e-bikes as electric bicycles separate from motorized bicycles and mopeds. And along with that, we wanted to make sure that we were creating a platform that would allow for folks to be able to acquire an e-bike without the cost being a prohibitive barrier. We hosted dozens of events across the state, and of a special importance, and for me, one of the most heartwarming of activities was our intergenerational group rides, specifically in Worcester and in the city of Cambridge, where we partnered with local bike co-ops led with youth and those at AARP to come out and ride and explore and have workshops to really build and foster a community of intergenerational bike riders. We'll hear about our e-bike distribution program, which is a 2-year pilot program that MassBike kicked off this year. And that has been an amazing opportunity to learn some of the barriers and successes to riding, specifically in the city of Worcester, as a dense, populated, and hilly community. And of course, for Bay State Bike Month in May, we knocked it out of the park with all of our coalition partners across the state, from the Berkshires to the Cape, which featured over 160 events in 40 different municipalities across the state. Now, some of these wonderful accomplishments have led us to actually being ranked the #1 bike-friendly state in the country. Now, I'm just going to take a second to thank and provide proper accolades for all of the statewide work that has gone into this accomplishment. And this is from the League of American Bicyclists, where on a quasi-annual basis, they like to rank all 50 states based on the policies, the legislation, the funding mechanisms, and the crash rates to really see what some of the best success stories are. And I'm proud to say that Massachusetts, we went from number 5 up to number 1. Now, of course, this took all of us together, from the local to the regional, to the state, to the federal level, to all collaborate. But I want to give a special props to all of the champions in the administration, because I feel like there's a couple of highlights that we want to make sure aren't lost on some of the great successes that we had with Governor Baker, Mass DOT, and DCR, and others. Specifically to call out the Complete Streets program, which provides funding for municipalities towards biking, walking, and transit. This Shared Streets and Spaces program, which was essentially the COVID response that came from the administration, which provided the opportunities for municipalities to open up their streets and bring people first out. The Mass Trails program, which was a collaborative approach for an interagency conversation, which we have seen in the past, I believe, 6 years, really push forward the movement, the development, the funding, and the successes of rail trails, shared use paths, and the network throughout the state. And more in terms of the COVID response, to make sure that though we may have been dealing with a global pandemic, we were focusing on the people first, and we facilitated a response that allowed for better biking to really take hold throughout the Commonwealth. I'm proud to say that Massachusetts also is a state that makes use of a fair majority of the federal funds that are made available, including our transportation alternatives funding and our Safe Routes to Schools funding, of which MassBike is a participant of the Safe Routes programming throughout the state. We have a recently updated statewide bicycle plan, which is guiding us in terms of creating a everyday biking priority list. But I will say that though all of this work, legislatively and administratively, is making its way down to the rider level, there is still work to do. And though we may be receiving A's in a lot of the categories in terms of policies and engineering guidelines, we need to get some of these infrastructure and networking opportunities to come online. And specifically, we still have some work to do in terms of our traffic laws and our practices that are going to enable safe roads, including our 3 or 4 foot passing, side guards on trucks, and a statewide crash reporting, which is still work to be done. So please do stay tuned for what we are hoping to accomplish, perhaps at the tail end of this Baker administration and as we move into the incoming Healy administration next year. But I do want to highlight 2 specific major milestones that we were able to achieve in 2022. Now, for anybody who's worked in the State House, they should know that the passage of legislation is an arduous and complicated and long process. 2 very important pieces of legislation that we've been working on, which got finalized, codified, and signed this year. One, it's an act relative to electric bicycles, which would define e-bikes as we know them, as pedal assist or low-speed e-bikes, to be considered electric bicycles distinct from motorized bicycles and motor vehicles, so that we can build sensible regional and statewide regulations and incentives to encourage people to ride e-bikes. And this was important for MassBike because we know that those who are choosing to ride e-bikes do so because e-bikes are a gateway to overcome barriers, whether those barriers are physical, whether those barriers are geographic, or whether those barriers are economic or more. E-bikes solve a lot of the problems that are out there. And we are encouraging e-bikes very thoroughly at MassBike, but we know that we have work to do. Along those lines, we were also able to work with an act relative to electric bicycle rebates to help lower the cost of price points for e-bikes to make them more accessible to more people throughout the Commonwealth. We're going to hear in a moment about all of that wonderful legislation from our champions at Beacon Hill. But I want to say that some of the work that MassBike was able to do, along with helping push this legislation through, and all the letters and coalition partners who are on this call to really help this move forward. I want to highlight this photo here is from one of our demo days that we hosted at the State House. We hosted 2 demo days at the State House to allow legislators and staff to come out and actually put themselves behind the handlebars to ride up Beacon Hill and see what e-bikes can do. And we hosted 4 different demo days throughout the state geared towards natural surface or commuting on pathways, and really just an opportunity to get out and really show people what we're talking about, what we mean, because though this is relatively new technology for folks, we are a little bit behind the curve in terms of defining what these devices are and then making sure that they can get into as many hands as possible. So with that, I'll turn it back to Kristen to lead us into our legislative panel discussion.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much, Galen. And of course, we would not be able to have made so much progress, including being #1, which I think deserves another shout out. And it wouldn't be possible without having really amazing partners on Beacon Hill. So we're going to go into our legislative panel, and you're going to get to hear from some of those rock stars. But first, we're going to be hearing from Senator DiDomenico, who was a champion of an act relative to electric bicycles, and unfortunately is unable to join us this evening. So we are going to be playing a short video from him.
Hello everyone, it's State Senator Sal DiDomenico here. Just want to say congratulations and thank you to MassBike for all your advocacy and your great work this past legislative session. We had great success with the e-bike legislation led by all of you, and we all know how important riding bicycles are for environmental impacts, exercising, getting people out and about, and making sure our families have a way to transport their children as well. Thank you very much for all your work. Looking forward to seeing all you soon. Hello everyone, it's State.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much, Senator DiDomenico. Sorry that you can't join us. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce 2 of our legislative bike champions, Representative Dylan Fernandes and Representative Natalie Blais, who Galen and I saw the pleasure of seeing last night in real life at an announcement of a creation of a new Office of Outdoor Recreation. So thanks for your leadership on that, Representative Blais as well. And she's got her bike pin. All right. Oh, it looks like you're muted too, Natalie.
I'll get her. I'll get him.
Okay.
All right. Oh, Natalie.
I can.
I'll carry it, Natalie.
Yes, Dylan happened to see my bike pin, and I mentioned that Galen had a bag of bikes that he was willing to share with all of us. So thanks, Galen, for sharing your love of bikes here in Massachusetts.
You're welcome. These 70-cent pins go so far on Beacon Hill. They really do.
Absolutely. Yes. Terrific. Well, thank you so much, Rep. Fernandes and Rep. Blais, for joining us tonight. And our first question is an easy one. So we'd love for you to share, how do you share bike joy?
Dylan, what do you got?
Okay, sure. Yeah, well, I mean, look, I love biking. And I am really fortunate to live about a 2 to 5 minute bike ride from the Shining Sea bike path in Falmouth, which is, if you haven't been on it, it's my personal opinion, it's the nicest bike path in Massachusetts. I'm sure people on this call
watch out.
conflicting would throw a red flag on that, but it is the #1 thing to do on TripAdvisor for the entire for all of Cape Cod, and that's because it just stretches this incredible rail trail for many miles right along the ocean. It's stunningly beautiful. I ride it all year long. It's great in the summer to go out for a ride and then jump in the ocean, come back, ride home. And in the winter, it's when it gets dark at 4 o'clock, I like to take 15-20 minutes out of my day and just get to the path. And it really helps with my mental health and like a really dark winter here too. So that's my personal bike joy. I love it. And I want it to be shared with as many people as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Representative Blais, your bike joy.
not falling off the bike. That is a big bike joy for me. I happen to live along a scenic byway here in Western Massachusetts, and I have to say that my biggest bike joy is seeing all of the bikers who drive bike by my house, and being able to assist with flats. Having a garage with a bike pump is a helpful thing to have out here, but I'll never forget it. Somebody did get a flat right outside of my house, and we were able to come out, my entire family was able to come out with a bike pump and be able to share a conversation about where these people were from. They had come over from the eastern part of the state and just wanted to experience the beauty of Western Massachusetts. And despite the flat tire, they were still having an amazing time. And the fact that we were able to be there and share that with them while we weren't on bicycles was actually pretty spectacular.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your service.
I hope you earned that vote. Great. No, and it's actually really important to highlight the building of community that's out there. And I think it's beautiful that we can, as person to person, get back out there and kind of share bicycling. My next question for you is, can you just take a minute to explain the bills that you both were able to file independently as you were able to combine into the transportation bond bill? But just take a moment to explain the bill and the impact that you are hoping to make it have on e-bikes. And mainly my underscore is, who were these bills for? And maybe Dylan, I'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, well, let me start by saying you guys are so lucky to have Galen and Kristen on the team. I mean, they've been there since day one pushing for these bills. These bills don't happen without Galen's hard work and without all the umbrella of MassBike pushing for this. So, we can talk a little bit more about the legislative process later. But you guys did a tremendous job advocating for these pieces. The piece that I was pushing, and this was something we've pushed for 2 terms, was around codifying e-bikes. Really simple, right? There's just a gray area in Massachusetts law where e-bikes existed in, and it was really uncertain both for manufacturers and business owners playing here in Massachusetts. And business owners, people who are retail shops who are selling e-bikes, they want certainty in the marketplace. That just didn't exist with e-bikes existing in a gray area. And of course, consumers do too. You don't want to buy an e-bike and not know where you stand in Massachusetts law. And so what we did is really simple, is just to codify e-bikes, give them a legal definition for 2 of the classes, and that by doing that, it provides a framework for them to not only exist here because they're already here, right, but flourish here and expand here, and that leads to Natalie's legislation, right? So first you need the framework for them, and then you can start incentivizing them, promoting them from the state level to gain even greater access for people in the state to biking. And for my district, I mean, look, I represent, I think it's the 3rd oldest county in America in terms of age, right? And we all know, well, everyone on this call knows the incredible health benefits of e-bikes. But as people age, they need some assist. And so e-bikes in particular for my community really help people through healthy aging. And so that was in large part how I came about it. But Natalie, I'll turn it over to you to talk about what we even added on top. And Natalie's been tremendous on this from day one. Oh, I think you moved. Oh no. Are you muted, Natalie? Okay.
Okay, here, I had muted myself because my dogs were barking, and you can't unmute yourself again. So Dylan, thank you, because it's been tremendous to work with you on this, and yours was really the first most important piece. The classification of e-bikes was so important in terms of people knowing what's out there and what they're buying and how we're regulating that. So It was great to build off of your success and certainly the partnership of everyone here today. What my legislation did was offer an e-bike incentive. We know based on surveys that there is tremendous appetite for e-bikes here in Massachusetts. And this legislation establishes a state rebate program to offset the cost of e-bikes with a $500 rebate to consumers and a $750 rebate for low-income consumers. And we couldn't have done this without all of you, is really the bottom line. Because we know that e-bikes do a lot of different things, as Dylan was just talking about. As we're talking about climate change, getting heavy vehicles off of the roadways is so important in reducing those carbon emissions. I live in Western Massachusetts, and Dylan's on the Cape. We represent a lot of rural communities. And I think a lot of times e-bikes are viewed as an urban solution. But we certainly see this as a rural solution as well, as we're looking at addressing first and last mile transportation gaps. It can also be a real economic development driver. Yesterday I joked about the bags of bikes that Galen was carrying around, but we saw each other at an event, and Kristen was there as well, where we celebrated the creation of a Massachusetts Office of Outdoor Recreation. Getting more people out into our scenic areas, buying things in our local stores, getting their bikes fixed at small shops along the way. That is an economic driver here in an area of the Commonwealth where we don't see a lot of economic growth. So this e-bike incentive is also a way for us to encourage economic growth across the entire Commonwealth. And so we see this as a win-win for a lot of different areas. And again, I just want to thank you for your partnership, because this really was a tremendous win in a single session. And I am so glad to be here to celebrate with all of you.
Thank you both so much. And thinking of my Schoolhouse Rock, how does a bill become a law? Can you all talk about how these bills came about? Were you inspired by constituents? Did you recognize, seeing a problem? I know, Natalie, it's pretty hilly here in Western Mass too, so e-bikes are pretty helpful for that, especially, someone was talking about their first trip up Greylock, although I'm sure they didn't use an e-bike. But can you all talk about what inspired you to work on this legislation? And you want to go first, Natalie, or Dylan, either one?
Natalie, why don't you go?
Yeah. So this legislation, this idea was brought to me by a constituent who has seen this happening in other parts of the nation and said, why aren't we doing this here in the Commonwealth? We've seen such success with electric vehicles. Why are we not also incentivizing the use of e-bikes? So through his great partnership and multiple briefing documents, he provided me with the tools to work with advocacy organizations to introduce legislation to make this possible. And we've talked a little bit about the legislative process tonight so far, but getting a bill passed in the first session that it's introduced is really something to be celebrated. And you all should take tremendous pride in the fact that we introduced this. There was a recognition from the committee and certainly from leadership that this was an important idea for us to advance, and we were able to get across the finish line. So I just have to shout out the importance of constituent input as we as legislators develop our priorities for next session. So much of what we do is what we hear directly from you, and it is incredibly powerful, as is evidenced here.
Great. Thank you so much. And Dylan, when you respond, could you also potentially talk about, there's a question in the chat that only class 1 and 2 e-bikes were addressed in the legislation. What was the obstacle to addressing class 3?
Yeah, sure. So, I came about this, well, one, I've always been a fan of e-bikes, but Rep Hecht, the former rep from Watertown, and Galen approached me about co-filing this the previous session, and it was a no-brainer for me, given my district, given my love for biking. And then we followed. It didn't pass that session. Then we followed up this next session, followed again with Rep Steve Owens from Watertown, who was a terrific advocate as well. I want to give him a shout out. And it was his first term. Really hard to get things passed in his first term, and we teamed up to get this done. So kudos to him. I mean, it is really hard to pass legislation. Like, I just can't underscore that enough. There are, 5,000-6,000 bills that get filed every year. A really, a fractional percent of those pass. It usually takes 6, 8, 10 years to get something passed, and a lot of things never pass at all. So the fact that Natalie was able to get this passed in one term, the fact that we were able to get our bills passed in 2 terms is actually pretty remarkable. And a lot of that comes down to timing in the legislative process. So it really, what gets passed depends on, there's so many factors, but one big central factor is which big bills are moving that session. And then can we take that big bill that's moving, and can we tack on smaller bills to that are germane or have to do with what that bill is about? And so we had a large transportation bond bill come up this session, and that looked like a perfect opportunity to file and pass e-bike legislation as a part of it. You really can't have a better opportunity than that. And we were able to do it through that vehicle, but that doesn't happen without years of advocacy and groundwork being done by Galen, by Kristen, by the people, by all of you, by the entire MassBike membership, reaching out to your reps, reaching out to your senators, having lobbying advocacy days on Beacon Hill. All of that lays the groundwork so that you can strike when the iron's hot in the legislative process. So the two things really act in tandem, and is why groups like MassBike are so incredibly important to laying the framework, laying the groundwork for that advocacy. So on the class 3, I wanted the class 3 and I wanted it in there. I actually love riding class 3. Look, there's still hesitancy as for some, this is still a new technology on Beacon Hill, and then there is some hesitancy about the speed at which class 3s go, and there's some uncomfortable. So some people feel uncomfortable with that. I personally don't at all. If you look at the speed at which a good rider on a flat road can go on a good street bike, it's actually pretty comparable to the speed at which a class 3 can get up to. But look, I understand where some reluctance comes through around the speed. And also that is something that we heard a lot from constituents about. People who use PAS, they raised a red flag around sharing with class 3 e-bikes. I think it's really important that we got class 1 and 2 pass. So for a couple of reasons. One, so we can pass things like Natalie's bill to get money and incentives for people to get e-bikes. And then that makes people more comfortable with them. Like, once we break down those barriers, and now that we've codified 1 and 2, that makes people more comfortable with e-bikes. And I think that lays the further groundwork for class 3 in the future. And at least that's my hope. So I think it's a really strong gateway, but hopefully we'll see. But I'm hoping in the future we'll tack on class 3 as well.
Great. Thanks so much.
Awesome. I couldn't concur with you more, Dylan. I mean, we worked really hard to get 1 and 2, and I think that's the big success. And there's a comment in the chat from Carlos, who's basically asking about how e-bikes might be able to be attributed for as a vehicle status for folks with disabilities in order to incorporate them under their limit. But the idea of having 1 and 2 is that groundwork now that we know what we're talking about. So Carlos, that's a really important question that you threw in the chat, because by building this foundation, we are able to now use the legislation that Dylan was able to put in terms of what we're talking about. So we can build off of that and create better structures and better policies because we know exactly what we mean. And I think that is super important. And I'm grateful to Rep. Fernandes and Rep. Owens and Senator DiDomenico for going to the mat for this, because I know that there was some controversy as well. And when we started this 4 years ago, we did not have the momentum that we have right now. So I think we created that momentum. I think my last question for you, and I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for your time and all your energies. And it's great to learn about how that sausage is made and the machinations of the State House. What should we look forward to in the 193rd session? So where are you excited to go with this in 2023 and beyond? And maybe Natalie, I'll throw it to you, and then I'll round out with Dylan.
Well, I was planning on introducing on the House side the outdoor recreation, which would have certainly supported these efforts, but we could check that one off the list, at least for now. The advocacy never ends. We need your voices at the table, and the e-bike rebates are certainly something that we will need to continue to work on. We're continuing to press the Baker-Polito administration to see if we might be able to get the e-bike rebates going before the end of the year, but that's a really heavy lift, considering all of the things that they are working on as they transition out to the Healy-Driscoll administration. So, early next year, we will be working with the new administration on how to define this new program. And there will be a formal process through the CIP process, the Capital Improvement Plan process, to allow individuals to give their voice to how this program that we've defined in legislation should be rolled out. And there have been a lot of questions. Should this program be retroactive? Can bikes be retrofitted? There have been a number of questions that have been retroactive e-bike rebate. There we go. There have been a number of questions that have been raised to me individually, and I know to MassBike, that we need to consider as the program is rolled out. So we'll need your voices going forward, and I can't emphasize enough, as I did when we talked about the idea for this legislation, how important it is for us to hear from you, because it's you that make these programs and this legislation successful. So I know, please stay tuned in to incredible organizations like MassBike that will help you to identify the ways that you can key in to these processes. And I am so grateful for the partnership of MassBike and all of you in not only what we've accomplished so far, but what we have to do still.
Yeah, I think that's really well said by Natalie. I could, agree with everything. You telling me what's up for next session, we'll file it. But look, we're at a really unprecedented moment in state history right now around federal funding, right? So we have, like, the federal funding that states are receiving is the greatest amount since like the 1940s, right? So this is a really important time to be advocating for how those funds are used. And I would like to see a good chunk of those transportation funds coming from the federal government, those climate funds coming from the federal government. I would like to see a large chunk of those go towards bike paths, go towards lanes on roads, go towards incentivizing e-bikes, incentivizing bike transportation, bike commuting. I mean, this is a really important time to be pushing for those dollars and be pushing for how those dollars are allocated, because we might not see this again for another 100 years, right? So that I think should be one of the many focuses of MassBike. You have an incredible coalition here, and I have no doubt that you guys are going to be pushing for this, and know that me and Natalie and I are always going to be here as allies for you in that fight. So stay involved in this organization. You guys, it's amazing how much clout you guys have. It's really cool to see. So stay involved and let us know how we can help you provide better mobility, provide better e-bike and just general bike access to everyone in the state. So, thank you guys for having me.
I just want to say, and Dylan, between you and me, like, we're covering the entire state right now. From Eastern Mass all the way to Western Mass. And
the hinterlands.
That is what it's all about.
Now, I didn't hear the words environmental bond bill yet, but we'll work on that going forward.
Right. That's good.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you both so much, Natalie and Dylan. We look forward to working with you in 2023, seeing you out on the trails or on the roads on our bikes. We love going for rides with legislators, and we know you all love to get out of the office. And so we'll look forward to doing that in 2023. And we're going to move on to the rest of our agenda. So we know y'all are busy folks, so feel free to stick around. And if not, we'll see you on the trails. So thank you so much.
Pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Terrific. Okay. And so thank you so much to Representative Fernandes and Representative Blais. And so now we're going to be moving into the e-bike program in Worcester. So thanks so much to all of our sponsors here, who we really couldn't do it without. These organizations are also important. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Alex Salado, who is MassBike's e-bike grant manager in Worcester.
Thank you, Kristen. Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here attending my first MassBike annual meeting. And I joined MassBike at the end of March to lead the Worcester E-Bike Pilot Program. And as you can see on the slide, we've kept ourselves busy, and so far we're on target on the program's goals. As of yesterday, we have distributed 89 e-bikes within the city, within the Worcester environmental justice community. We will show you some demographics in the next slide. Since August, we've organized monthly workshops and rides to encourage safe bicycling, and have started tracking the e-bikers' usage data, and will do so for the next 18 months. We'll show you more on this shortly. We're hoping the data we're collecting will show effective ways to help people shift from using combustion engines to e-bikes for more trips, and by doing so, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This data will also identify barriers to biking and explore the economic impact of bicycle use as a primary mode of transportation. The program will also learn how much riding a bike can have an impact on our health and wellness. And here's our next slide that shows some of our current program participants' demographics. It's important to highlight here that our program had an amazing response. We received almost 1,200 applications. I'm going to say it again, 1,200 applications between May and June. And this robust pool of applicants allow us to target low-income individuals as our selected participants. And so far, as you can see in the slide, we have relatively equal numbers in terms of gender and age. Something we are particularly proud of is that our selected participants embody the City of Worcester's demographics in terms of race and match the city's latest census data as shown here. As I said previously, and you can see in our next slide, one of the program goals is to have the e-bikers use their e-bikes more frequently for shorter trips. Since our first deployment in August, we have started tracking data by categories. Back in August, our participants rode heavily for recreational purposes, and this helped them to get more comfortable riding their e-bikes. As months go by, our riders are shifting their usage to other categories, to use their e-bikes for shopping more frequently. So we're currently exploring ways, such as months go by, our riders are shifting their usage to other categories, such as riding to work. We're also hearing that they would like to use their e-bikes for shopping more frequently. So we're currently exploring ways in which we can equip them and their bikes to do so. This brings me to our next slide, which is what is next for our program. We have started doing stuff to encourage more riding, even when it's cold outside. We're currently having one-on-one conversations with our participants to understand what motivates them to ride or ride more frequently. We'll continue surveying them on a regular basis as well. Our 2023 events calendar, workshops and rides is in the making. And here I would like to take the great opportunity to invite all of you to join us on our events or volunteer with us, either by facilitating workshops or leading rides. Our e-bike program is community focused and its success depends on all of us. And in the spring of 2023, we will deploy the final 11 e-bikes. Our next slide, which is one of my favorites, captures the feedback the program has heard so far. We received, as you can imagine, a lot of testimonials from our riders, and we included Obdulius here. He joined the program in August, and since then, he and his family have rolled with us on most of our rides. He speaks very little English, but that is not a barrier for him to show his gratitude, as you can see here in his testimonial. On our Halloween ride, he chose to bring beverages for everyone in his little trailer, pulled by his e-bike, as you see in this photo. Speaking of participants, we would love for you to hear directly from them. Next is a short video that we have prepared for you. Please note that when the video was finished, we had deployed 86 e-bikes. We're now at 89. Enjoy the video and please stay in touch.
Hello, I'm Terry. I just got a new e-bike. I live up on the summit, and every time I take a ride from my house, it's a beautiful ride, and then I have to turn around and it's all uphill. It's like a horrible ride.
Why did you decide to enroll in the e-bike Worcester program?
I thought it was a great initiative, and just thinking about creating like a more green city is something I really passionately align with, and also just thinking about how to cut back on my emissions, because I use my car a little too often.
I'm excited about this new journey, riding this bike and just getting more healthier. I will take this thing to work. I would take this thing to drive the trails and to go food shopping.
This bike is not only going to get me in shape, it's also going to get me back and forth to all the activities I need to participate in, work, and also having to do some recreational activities.
My name is Hong Yip.
And where do you plan to ride your bicycle?
I'm gonna go my work, grocery shopping.
It's gonna get me into biking again, and it's so much easier. Like when I get tired, I can actually let the bike do some of the work. So I'm really excited to take my e-bike all over the city and see what I can do with it.
I'm Tom. I'm excited to just get out and ride. I've been wanting to stop being chained to a car for so long, and now I can get around without having to walk or drive, so it's nice. Yeah. The challenge is definitely the lack of bike lanes, I'd say. Yeah, is the main thing, really, and just having connectivity, because there are bike lanes in the city, but I feel like they don't connect to each other as well.
Loving the community bike rides. Got my new bicycle a couple of months ago. I put about 300 miles on it, and I'm just having a great time every day I can. I like the community. You know, I met a lot of new people. The bike couldn't be better. I haven't ridden a bike in over 20 years due to a bad heart, and this thing got me back on the road.
It's like magic.
Awesome.
It's just, you know, with every pedal you can go as fast as you need to, which is going to be crucial with the Worcester Hills. Moving forward, I hope to ride it to work. So it's about a 6 mile ride, 6-7 mile ride, and I think it'll be really enhance my commute.
I would love to be able to take it like grocery shopping into, you know, to my Worcester job and ride it through Worcester. It's like right now I don't do that. Right now I do ride, but I put a bike on the car and just take it to a flat rail trail.
And how did it go today on the e-bike?
I want to say it was like more than amazing. The simple fact that when I kicked on this e-bike, this E to the bike, it was just, I felt like a little kid going wee on a roller coaster. I was scared at first. I looked at the hill, I'm like, I can't make it up there. But after I kicked on the E to the bike, so I keep calling it, I just felt confident. I just rode up the hill like nothing.
I mean, it's controllable, absolutely controllable, but it's definitely a good assist.
I'm in love. I feel like a little kid.
And why did you decide to enroll in the e-bike Worcester program?
I haven't had a bike in a while, so I was just really excited to get back into it and get back into getting fit and exercise.
Yeah, I've always loved biking, so when I saw this, I thought it would be an awesome opportunity to try out an e-bike and do some more biking.
And where do you think you'll be riding your bikes?
Most likely I'll be riding to work, probably on some rail trails.
Yeah, I'll probably do it to school and then on the weekends, just like for fun.
Jeff, was this your first time on an e-bike?
It was.
And what did you think?
Pretty awesome. I must say it's pretty awesome.
Okay, and how are you going to be using your bike here in Worcester?
To work every day and errands.
How was your first experience riding?
Awesome. I'm very excited to get out and ride more.
It feels so good. Like when I was riding, I'm like, oh my God, I felt young again.
Yeah. What did you think?
It was kind of thrilling, to be honest, but also like, wow, biking could be so much easier, especially with the hills of Worcester.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Great. Oh, great. Alex, thank you so much for running this program. It is probably one of the most heartwarming things that I think we have done at MassBike. And this is just the start of the program. And I want to say that we are focusing on the distribution aspect. And over the next 2 years, Alex is going to be working with all of our participants to be helping them ride more. So hopefully the stories we'll be able to tell next year and the following year will really kind of show the proof of the pudding. So we're really excited about everything that we were able to do. And I want to hark back to one other program that I'm also extremely excited about, which is a combination of several programs kind of collaborated and combined together. Our older adult programming is also probably one of my favorite aspects of MassBike's work because it's helping people get out into the real world and helping them overcome barriers. We know that, e-bikes aside, that older adults are more prone towards isolation. They're more prone to health problems. They're aging out of being able to get driver's licenses and effectively get around their community. And then, of course, compounded with COVID, everything is multiplied by an exponential factor. So MassBike has leaned heavily into partnerships of creating intergenerational programs. Two that I want to highlight very briefly on this slide. One, it's our intergenerational program in Worcester, funded by AARP. We received a grant through the Community Challenge Grant to run workshops and rides, which we're pairing up with our e-bikers, which is combining the 508 Bike Life Youth, which are operating with partnership with Worcester Earn a Bike to lead our rides and our workshops. And so we're really trying to build a growing community led with youth leaders and participants being older adults to kind of break down the generational barriers. And then the city of Cambridge, we've been working with the Cambridge Community Development Department for the past 2 years to run events, workshops, rides. And I am so proud of what we were able to do, specifically in the urban areas of Cambridge, because the idea of exploring the trails, the pathways, the bike lanes, specifically in Cambridge because the infrastructure is there, a little bit less so in Worcester, but we'll see where that goes. It really is helping people get out of their own bubbles and into their communities. So I am so grateful for all of our instructors. They're numerous to name, but specifically Susie Ecker and Peter Perlmutter in the Cambridge side of things, and Alex and the e-bike team and all the 5-Way Bike Life out in Worcester have been awesome. So I just want to double emphasize all of the work that is going to creating riding in all ages. And the next slide, I do believe, is a quick shout out to our Advocate of the Year, Lily. I wonder if we could do a quick spotlight on Lily just so we can do a quick thanks. And I want everyone to go down to the bottom of their screen and use the reactions button to give a highlight of a thanks and a hello. Lily really held it down working with our Lights Brigade campaign, which was a distribution of lights to folks who are out in the world who are riding without lights. Lily would flag them down. She made this awesome like night bright light sign to flag people down. And then in the greater Boston area, Lily was our champion to hold down our bike valet events. Time and time again, I would rely on Lily to help, not just with the conceiving of the timing and being able to volunteer, but she came out to help us think of a better structure and organization to how to best run a bike valet, including what's photographed here, which is the Somerville Fluff Fest, which I think we had probably over 1,000 bikes parked on the course of the day, which was just a continuous overflow of bikes out there. So I'm super grateful to Lily. We'll take a quick pause if anybody wants to just throw some shout outs in the chat. And Lily, we're so grateful to have you as a volunteer. And without you and without all of the collaborations that we're able to do with folks who are not on our staff, who are not in our leadership team, but really who are the wheels on the ground to make your local efforts happen. So quick shouts. Thank you so much. You are so awesome.
Thank you so much, Galen. It is a pleasure working with you and the whole MassBike team. And I'm extremely impressed at how the organization has grown and the kind of coalition that we are building. So it is always super fun to volunteer, and I look forward to what is coming next.
Awesome. Great. Cool. Excellent. We round out our program. I'll pass you back to Kristen to just round us out with a few slides.
Great. And thank you so much, Lily. And I know someone had thrown in the chat about getting involved with Lights Brigade. We love to give out lights for you to give out. And it just feels so good to see folks riding off with those bright lights, and they're so appreciative. So if you want to get involved, definitely let us know. And of course, some of your contributions to MassBike go to help the Lights Brigade, which is making sure that people get safely around. We know it gets dark super early in the wintertime. So thanks so much to the 4 folks who have donated so far tonight. And as a reminder, any new members or folks who are new with MassBike will have their donations doubled by the MassBike board during December up to $8,500, which can go a long way. That's lots of lights and lots of folks out on the street helping people get out on their bikes. So I hope you'll consider joining us tonight. Look for the donation link in our follow-up survey, and we encourage all past members to renew their support too, so we can ride the tailwinds into 2023. And we have a handy QR code there that was just on the previous screen. So just hold your phone up to that, and every amount makes a huge difference. So thank you so much to everyone who's donated. Thanks to all the folks who are members of MassBike. And if you have folks who love biking, reach out to a friend as well. So now I'm gonna pass it to Galen.
Awesome. So say you're giving us $1, say if you give us $100 or $1,000, I want you to know who you are joining in this contributive ecosystem to the organization. Now we are a nonprofit 501c3 at MassBike, which means that we are always trying to get some more money because the work that we do is to give back. We are a gifting organization trying to expand better biking across the state. I'm going to take a minute to just let you all soak in the wide diversity of donors and funders who are supporting MassBike. A lot of these donors and sponsorships came with our Bike Month. So that is a great opportunity if you have somebody, maybe it's a local business, or maybe it's your employer who's interested in becoming a little bit more involved with some of our work. That's a great opportunity to be engaged. Or generally, throughout the course of the year, we have Lights Brigade, which usually kicks off in the fall. We have the e-bike programs, we have the older adults programs, and then much, much more to come. And I do want to say that I have a specific point of pride to this slide, because I like to showcase that we have a diversity of funders from major developers to bike shops, to municipalities, to institutions, to foundations, and those at the state level who are valuing better biking on a state level and are showing it through their sponsorship. And a special thanks as well to our 25 individual donors throughout the year who gave 500 or more. We'd love to see that number tick up by the end of the year. And specifically our charity riders and our memorial riders, the Alan Harris, the Charlie Proctor, the Peter Dulcetti Memorial Funds, and also the Chris Weigel Memorial Fund, which is particularly important to just show that there is the humanity behind the work that we do. I also want to take a moment to say that none of this work would happen without the staff of MassBike, in particular, Crystal Walsh, our development coordinator, who has been on the job for 2 years and has helped grow the organization, has helped expand the logos on this slide and the influence of MassBike. So I'm grateful to have somebody like Crystal helping out the bottom line of the organization so that we can remain strong. Without Crystal, none of this would be possible. So particular thanks. And then while I'm on that slide, I also want to say a quick shout out to our communications coordinator, Jess Slavin, who is the showrunner tonight. So thank you so much, Jess, for making this run so smoothly and seamlessly. And she put a ton of effort into here. So just very quick thank yous. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Kristen.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. Thanks to all our presenters. Thanks for all the great shout outs in the chat. Thanks to everyone who's donated. It really is a pleasure to be part of MassBike with all of you.